Hi, Jim Ziegler, the Alpha Dog, and I got a special treat for you today. We got my guest is going to be Mr. Noel Walsh. And before we get started, of course, I got to do a little housekeeping and be sure we make this broadcast public. So bear with me before I bring Noel on. Okay, refreshing the browser. High tech. Forgive me, I'm an old guy doing the best I can. Here we go. Public. We're public. Hello, Noel Walsh.
Jim, how are you?
I'm having the best day of my entire life. You'd be amazed. I mean, Debbie and I had a great weekend. We went down to Mount Dora and did the arts festival, and we took Sadie the Wonder Dog with us, and we stayed in the hotel for a couple of days. 130-year-old haunted hotel, just fun stuff.
Sounds like a good time. Yeah. Well, as always, you look good. You look energized. You look fresh. So honored to be a guest.
I understand you and Sarah went hiking this weekend.
We did, yes. We took the kids. We needed to get out of the house. We've been fighting a funk going through here. I know you and Debbie had somewhat of one yourselves, but we did. We got out. We did a little bit of hiking. We went to Tuacahn. We didn't see a theater performance, but we walked around the theater and did some hiking on the Red Rock. And so it was some well-needed family time after being on the road quite a bit lately.
Okay. Hey, Johnny Lee just showed up. Hello, Johnny Lee. Anyway, let's this audience build up a second. My guest today is Noel Walsh, motivator, sales trainer, professional speaker, jack of all automotive trades. I mean, this guy is a super, super high performer. So, Noel, tell us a little bit about your company. Or first of all, tell me a little bit about your background. So many trainers out today that are complete frauds, never did it in their life. I mean, tell me about your background.
Absolutely. So I literally grew up in the business. My father was up to a GM level, and he started as a salesperson. My stepdad was a service manager at a Chrysler dealership. My dad's father ran Ford Steel. He was the foreman of Ford Steel. And my mother's father, my grandfather on my mother's side owned a Dodge dealership right on the Detroit border. So basically my whole life I've grown up in the car business. I've grown up on the weekends and after school, washing cars for delivery, working in the service department, vacuuming out, customers' vehicles in for service. And so I started selling back in 2000 as 21 years old. And my dad made me wait till I was 21 because I was doing construction with my brothers and I wanted to start at 18 because I knew construction wasn't really my thing. And my dad said, no, you aren't mature enough yet. We're going to do one run at this. We're going to make sure you do it right. So you're starting when you're 21. And so
what did you do in construction? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I did framing. Both of my brothers had construction business. So I did framing. So, building the sticks, putting the frame together.
Well, it's amazing. When I was 21, I was hanging sheetrock.
Okay.
I have a friend named Leland Wetherington, and it's amazing. Leland and I were a two-man team, and in those days we were getting like $1.25 a board, $1.75 for a ceiling board. We were using hatchets and actually hammering the nails in instead of shooting the nails in. It was a little different then. And of course, I got out of it, went a different direction. I went into radio as a DJ, but Leland went on. He is a world famous builder. He's building $1 million houses all over Florida right now. He's highly successful. It's amazing. We both got that construction in our background. Well, tell me some more. You got out of construction. You went into car business.
Yep. I went into the car business. And so I started out really, really good my first year. I was the top used car salesperson at the dealership I was at. And my dad left after about 6 months. He was the used car manager. And then he went on to be a GM at a Chevy store. So I got a new manager, had a great first year, was the top used car salesperson at the dealership. And then I kind of thought that I knew it all. Right. So I thought that I knew
every salesperson that gets into business starts out, they make an incredible amount of money, they sell an incredible amount of cars, and about 3 months in, they catch a disease I call expertise.
You're absolutely true. And for me, it took more about a year to catch that.
Oh, you catch the expertise disease.
And so I started dropping an income every year. And as I'm dropping an income, we're having our family's grown. We're buying a house now. We've got all these other bills. When I was making, my first year when I made really good money, I had like no overhead. My overhead was like $500. I mean, imagine that. And so I had like no overhead. Well, now I had overhead. So I figured out, I've got to switch this around. So I started becoming more of a student of the business again. Like when I first started, and paying attention to the top producers, getting my hands on any sales material and training I could. Back then it was different. Basically, your dealership had to sign up for it. It's not like now to where you can go to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. There's all this material out there. So getting my hands on all the material I could and really, understanding the craft and really learned and dialed in on the basics that it's really a people business. And if you handle yourself as a professional and you're truly there to serve your customers, really sales is really that easy.
It's amazing. I walked in a car dealership and I was just going to do this until I got a better job. Now, that was 42 years ago. So the third month in the business, maybe the second month, I've lost track, I made $4,500. I had been general sales manager of a pretty large radio station, a very executive position, and I never made that kind of money in 1976.
Right. No, that
was unheard of. I set the all-time record for the dealership 3 months in, and that's the Coggin organization out of Jacksonville. And about 3 years later, I get a call from Mr. Coggin himself. He says, Jim, the managers are afraid to approach you. I said, what? He said, well, we have a new insurance company and we're taking all performance cars out of demo service. I'm driving a 280ZX that I had won the right to drive in a sales contest. I said, Mr. Coggin, I'm a single man and I've got that demo for a year. I won it in a contest. He said, well, we're taking all Trans Ams and all 280ZXs out of debt. Get yourself a nice Bonneville. I don't want a Bonneville. I want my 280ZX. So I went on strike. Went in my office, crossed my arms, and turned the lights out. About 5 minutes into that strike, I get a call from Robbie Boone at Westside Toyota, 30 miles away. He said, Mr. Ziegler, I understand they've taken your demo away.
Wow.
I mean, it's like 5 minutes into it.
Right.
He said, I got a porter right now shining up a new Supra. And I was very loyal to the Coggin organization. I said, what color is that Supra? He said, black and gold. I said, send the Supra. So I went and got my salesman Samsonite out of the service department, 2 cardboard boxes. Right. loaded it up, and I had a sales manager hanging around my leg trying to keep me there. They sent the porter with a car, and I left.
Wow.
So when I went to Westside Toyota on the 15th, I had not sold a car. Not one. And Robbie Boone said, I'm disgusted. I hired you. I heard all these rumors about how great you were, and you haven't sold a car. We got green peas that sold 15. We got Toyota-thons happening. Spotlights in the sky. I said, well, Robbie, I don't know what the problem is. And then I figured it out. I was trying so hard to show off for the other salespeople that didn't know me. I was the king where I was.
Right.
But I walked in Westside Toyota. I was a nobody. I'm going to show them who I am. And I took every shortcut. I did every expertise. I did everything wrong. I skipped steps. And I went to Robbie Boone the next day. I said, Robbie, look, when I was at Coggin, even though I was a top salesman, they managed me. You've given me my own schedule, my own demo, my own, desk my own deals. I said, excuse me, I want to be managed just like everybody else and attend the meetings. I was not the number one salesman that month at Westside Toyota, but I came in a solid number 2.
That's strong. After starting out at 0 on the 15th.
You caught the disease of expertise. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it was. It's like you said, I was skipping the steps. I was just always focused on what was going to pay me the most, what was going to be the easiest route, all the wrong things I was focused on. And I just kind of kept getting worse. And so like a lot of other people, right, I started joining the huddle, right? I started joining the team sports, the huddle, how it can't be done.
The dope ring.
Yeah, sitting around in a corner talking about how it's everybody's fault but our own. And, there's this vortex out against us. So then it got to the point to where my wife was no longer going to work. She was pregnant with our daughter, so I had to make the money. So that's really where I changed my focus, that it wasn't anymore about getting by or being able to have nicer things or do nicer things. It was having to, that I had another life coming in. And so I had to, and that's really when I just kind of wiped the slate clean. And I just started out like a complete student. And like I said, I followed the top producers. I followed their processes. I followed how they did their follow-up, how they talked to their customers, how they handled multiple customers at once. And I also got, like I said, my hands on as much training as I could to really grow my skill level. And then it was just kind of like I teach and train. Then it was just kind of, it was kind of like a snowball, because, then I got back to making six figures. And then every year I went up 20%, regardless of recessions and that, because that was my focus. That was my mindset. And I really became a student of it. And then as I became a student, my dad was a really good trainer. He's trained hundreds of salespeople in his years of being in management, like you have on both ends, on the management end and on the vendor side, on the training side. But the things that he taught me when I first started clicking in. And so I think my problem is I learned quick and fast, and then I thought I knew it all. So like you said, I was skipping steps. It was all about me. It was all about pre-qualifying customers. Oh, they aren't going to buy. Look what they're pulling up in. Or, it's 15 minutes to closing. I'm not going to take that up. They might keep me here longer, and I might sell a vehicle. Right. I'm going to go home and do nothing anyways, so it's, so I just went back to being at work and just listening to that customer, just zoning in on that customer, and always just putting a car sale together in my mind the whole time.
The whole time. It's amazing, because as a sales trainer, when I go into a dealership, and I'm not doing that anymore, I'm basically, the last dealership I visited was a year ago. Well, I take that back. I broke the rule, and 3 months ago I did one in Pennsylvania, but that was a friend that wanted me in there. But for the most part, I was traveling, 200 days a year out of town, working in dealerships. And one thing I always experienced was the mutineers. The first time you go into a dealership, you've got the mutineers. They have a little meeting in the restroom, and the first thing they tell the other salesman is, these guys come and go as soon as, they already had my plane schedule. They knew when I was leaving, and they knew their managers weren't going to do it when I left. So do you experience anything like that?
Yes. I know. I know what you mean. That's why I prefer the longer contracts with the scheduled quarterly or 6-week in-house training, because you really have to keep them involved. And you're so right. And this is something that people don't talk about as much, but you can train, I can train, who's ever out there training can train the best material, the best systems, the best processes that will create results. And the salespeople can start doing it. But if they aren't facing, the customers appreciating it and accepting it, and it's just a constant fight or an uphill battle, it's not going to work. So sometimes you get the people in there that say, have the predetermined notions of, oh, this guy's this or this person's that, or this is how it's going to be. Sometimes you have those. Sometimes you have those who really want to learn, and those are kind of like, when I sold vehicles, my favorite customers were the real standoff customers, because those were the ones where you really feel you got, I made a sale. I overcame every objection. They did not want to buy. I made a sale. I like those ones much more than a referral that came in and said, hey, we want this stock number, and, we'll take the 0%. And, they're done like that. So sometimes I appreciate those people if I get the opportunity to show them and they will actually accept it, because those sometimes are the best students, because they fought it in the beginning. And then when they see some value, you know, when somebody uses a word track or a script or uses a process that I teach, and then they make a sale off it, then they continue to use it and see that it works. That's how you can change those, you know, naysayers into believers.
Well, we got a guy on the sidelines here, Johnny Lee. And Johnny Lee says, how can you train motivation?
You know, that's a great question, because you really can't train motivation. You can put motivation out there. You can use techniques to try and bring people to find that motivation inside them. But, you know, Zig Ziglar said it best when, you know, motivation's like hygiene. You know, it needs to be done on a daily basis. And I teach about this in Conquer You, that you need to find outside motivation. You need to be able to find a way to motivate yourself. And then along the way, too, motivate others, because sometimes that's so rewarding. You know, you can be having and you probably dealt with this, you can be having the worst day, or you're sick, or whatever the case is, your dishwasher goes out, it's the last thing you want to deal with. And then you get one of those messages on Facebook where somebody's like, hey, you're so inspirational and motivating, and thank you, and I've grown my career. So those are really what makes being a trainer great, is when you get that.
Salespeople have what I call a nut mentality. They're not trying to get ahead. They're not trying to excel. They're not trying to be a super success. They just want to cover their nut one more month in a row. They know exactly what their expenses are. They know exactly what their nut is. And the minute they hit their nut, they lay down and stop selling for the rest of the month.
Right.
A lot of people in the car business have that nut mentality. You can break out of it. I tell people, I can't teach you focus. I can't teach you intensity. I can't teach you motivation. I can stand up here and strut around and show you what it looks like.
Right.
But I can't teach it. You
Right.
have to reach inside of you and create that. It has to be a desire. And every sales meeting I do starts out with, do you want more than you now have? Do you want a better house? You want a better car? You want jewelry? You want vacations? You want fine dining? You want luxury? You want education for your children? You want retirement, security into your old age? Why are you doing this? And are you doing enough to get it? Are you doing enough to have it? Because if you can't tell me where that house is and what it's made of and what neighborhood it's in, you can't have it. It's just a smoke dream.
Right.
You agree?
Oh, yeah. So it's a vague goal.
Well, tell me about your company. What do you do?
Yes. So NWA sales training, I started it back in 2010 when I was still selling at the time. And so that started out, a lot of times I'd go in and I'd train. I never trained anybody in my direct area, but I'd go and train. It was usually a friend or somebody I'd worked with in the past, a store that they were GM of or GSM. I'd go in and train the sales staff. And then I started writing some blogs, and I had some of my blogs picked up for different automotive websites. In fact, I can't even tell you what they're on right now, because they switch constantly. I have a company that I went through, and they'll kind of switch around. I'll get paid a lot, and then I won't get paid for a little bit, and then it comes back around. But so I started doing that as my training. And then in 2012, I had a huge opportunity to do training for an international non-automotive company.
Really?
And it was right when my wife was having our second child. And, you know, I don't try and sound like whining or anything, but we really never had help from family. So when we had a kid, it was kind of like me and Sarah doing everything. And so we had our child. And so I stepped back off of that. I tapered off. I was like, oh, the timing's not right. There's too much going on. I'm making really good money selling. I've got, 401k, I've got insurance, blah, 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 because my wife always stayed at home. So I'm like, and I've got a big nut. So I was always the sales manager's favorite sales guy, because I always had a big nut. I had to make a lot of money, and I had to max out my 401k. I had all these goals that I wanted to do. So in like 2014, we got to a point where we thought about moving to a different climate, a better climate. And I shared a little bit of this with you on our conversation the other day. And so I was looking at my training material, and I'm like, wow, I've got really great stuff here. And I'm like, this is really just what I did. I mean, it's not complicated. It's what I did. It's proven. It's got its track results and what I did and shared with other salespeople at work and what they implemented of what I did. And I said, if I don't ever move away from this, I'm never going to do this. Because, I'm making good into six figures. Life is perfect, right? I'm good equity in my house, maxing out my 401k, da-da-da-da-da. So I've got this big client base that I built. So we moved to St. George, Utah, basically like ninjas in a week. We moved 2,000 miles.
What were you thinking?
I thought if I didn't move away from my job, I would never do my sales training. And that was really my passion because.
Now, are you Mormon?
No, I'm Catholic.
Okay. I tell women all the time, look, I'm happily married, but if I ever turn Mormon, you're on the list.
They probably love that.
Yeah. Just some humor. Hey, Becky Chernick's on the broadcast.
Yeah, Becky, glad to have you. We'd talked on Facebook about this, but so that was really my passion was, I like training, and it got to the point where salespeople were coming up to me more than the managers. And so I was kind of doing the training and walking them through and managing them in a lot of ways anyways. And I just really felt that, I'd like to try more of the vendor end, seeing how I spent so much time in dealerships. And I love being in a dealership. When I go back, there's still something electric about that dealership, especially when it's busy, especially when there's people coming in, there's people buying. I love taking TOs. I love helping with phone calls. I love doing all this stuff because there's something magical, that really gets salespeople and managers and, car people hooked, is just that energy and electrifyingness in the showroom when it's busy.
When I go in a dealership and I hear the F&I manager complaining about this, that, or the other, or the desk manager, you can't do that here. Get up. Let me sit down. And I'll take over the sales desk. I'll go in and deliver cars in the F&I office. And they've never seen very many trainers do that. Because I'm a management trainer and I came from a management background, which, I'm a sales trainer as well, but sales training was never my focus. My focus was always training dealers how to be dealers, training general managers how to be general managers. That's always been my focus. And that's why my stuff has been successful. And why your stuff is successful is because we get our power base from the dealer.
Yes.
No offense, but I go to a dealership and I have a manager come up and say to me, Mr. Ziegler, this is the way we do it here. And I'll say, well, you don't think they brought me here because you're doing a good job, do you? You think they call it a master chef and then change the recipe?
Right.
Have you experienced that?
Oh, yes, most definitely. That's one of the toughest things is to get the buy-in, at that culture level, because a lot of the times the salespeople, they want some training. I talk to salespeople all the time and they're like, wow, we're glad they're bringing in training, and they haven't been doing training in a while. And a lot of people, especially, the youth is really into training because that's how they grew up. We grew up kind of in the car business that, hey, here's the 7 steps to make a sale, go out and get one. Right. And you kind of had to find it out. The youth now, they're so used to growing up off watching a YouTube video. How do I do this? We'd figure it out. We'd call our grandma. We'd call our mom. We'd call whoever we thought knew how to do that. Now we just go to a YouTube video. A lot of the salespeople do want the training. I think the management sometimes feels that there's maybe their ego may be affected or adjusted, or I'm going to completely downgrade everything that they've done up to this point. And I think that's the biggest backlash and the biggest obstacle with management.
I have a saying, and I think I may have shared it with you before. In the car business, we don't have a knowing problem. We have a doing problem. See, people say we need more training. No, you don't. You need to just do what you're trained. You already know what to do.
Right.
And I mean, as a manager, my strength was not being smarter than everybody else. I was able to set records because I did things they didn't do. But, it's the same stuff they knew. But I did it in reality. And that's what made the dealership so successful.
No, absolutely. There's a there's a difference too between action and productivity. And I teach that all the time, that, sometimes somebody, well, I talked to 8 customers, or I sent out this many emails, or I did this, but they didn't produce anything. And it's like, all right, so action and productivity aren't the same. That it's good you're doing the motions, but you've got to make sure that those are productive. That
Imagine that.
Right. That you okay, if it's not working and you're doing the motions, then something needs to be adjusted and addressed. And that's where I think, they should really, management should really step in, and salespeople should really go to management, because like you said, a lot of these managers, I would say most of them got there because they were good at something that the GM or the owner thought they were worthy to become a manager. And so a lot of times they have skills. They obviously don't have all the skills, but that's the nice thing about having 5, 6, 7 different managers between F&I and sales floor and closers and GMs, is you have those people that you can go to and really overcome that objection that you're facing.
Well, it's amazing, because so many managers don't have hyper awareness. Now, that's one of my pet theories, is that you have to be aware of every deal in progress.
Yes.
I go in dealerships today, they got their head buried in the CRM and they're not watching their business. Have you seen that?
Yes.
The managers are all sitting at a common desk 20 feet long, and they're looking down at their CRM and they're not watching their business. Managers should be like sharks that never stop swimming. They constantly in motion, constantly being aware of everything that moves. If you're not actively working a deal, you don't need to be sitting at the desk.
Right. No, very true, because when you're really surveying the showroom floor and the actual buyers that are there, the people that are negotiating deals, they're going on demonstrations, they're ready to buy. That way you can see the body language. You can see where your salesperson is. You can see if they're getting nervous. You can see if they're skipping steps. You can just stay on top of everything. If you see some tense body language, it's a great opportunity to go in and just at least introduce yourself. Everybody loves dealing with the manager. How often do you hear, "Oh, I only deal with the manager"? I'm there for 15 years. I only deal with the manager, and all they do is they say hi to the manager for a few minutes, and they deal with the salesperson. But that's the feeling that they get. So no, I think that managers really need to be. That's one thing I think that's hurt this business in a sense, is it's become so, and technology is great, don't get me wrong, but this business has become so technology centric. People forget that it's still a people business.
Imagine that.
It's not all about the app or the CRM or the DMS or it's still about a handshake, a good greeting, making the customer feel comfortable about what they're doing, providing value. And, all these other tools are nice to keep it afloat, to keep it going, and to take away some added steps. But it's still about selling the people, is what selling cars is.
How many times you've seen a salesperson shake hands with a consumer, give them their name, they give you their name, and 30 seconds later, I can say that. So what's those people's name?
Oh.
When I was teaching Carnegie back a long time ago, the first thing in Carnegie is get their name, remember their name, and use it.
Right.
That comes right out of Carnegie. Get their name, remember their name, and use it. As a salesperson, I can't tell you how many times I forget their names.
Right.
Because I didn't pay attention when I asked it. And it's okay for a salesman to say, "Excuse me, sir, I apologize. I've forgotten. I won't forget again. What is your name?" It's okay to say that.
Right.
They wouldn't mind. Rather than say,
"I might have forgot your name too."
Yeah. And they say, and I see salesmen today say, "Excuse me, sir, how do you spell your last name?" Jones, you moron.
Right.
Quit it. Hey, Kevin O'Brien just showed up. Cheryl Lynn's on the broadcast. Jesse Hernandez, John Garland, Daryl Libby. We got a crowd.
We do. I saw that. I've been watching it here on my phone, still staying focused.
Yeah, Johnny Lee's asking questions. Becky Chernick's on. Mike Phillips. We got the who's who of the car business on. Alan Eagles. I didn't see that earlier. Okay, Alan Eagles says you can have every trainer in the world as much as you want, but until the managers buy in and do their job, you're wasting money. Train, retrain, replace. You can't train motivation.
That's absolutely spot on. And we talked about that a little bit earlier, that you and I, we can go in, we can train all the processes, systems, scripts, word track, everything they would ever need to be successful and have a higher closing ratio. But if they aren't getting buy-in from leadership, if leadership doesn't accept that vision, then it's going to be a failed battle. Because after a while, the salespeople keep facing resistance, and they're just going to quit and go back to what they're accustomed to. Motivation, I don't think you can teach it, but there are so many ways out there to get it that you can find a way to bring it out inside of you. Like when I said, when I really turned my career around, it was us having our first child, my daughter. That motivated me. I had to, right? I had to make more money. I had to provide all the things that she should have in life. And so that really motivated me. And I found I found ways to keep myself motivated in other ways, and you've worked out. So working out sometimes is motivation, right? That you get up early and you're like, hey, I already worked out today. Look, I'm looking good. I'm feeling strong. That motivates. Okay, if I did that by 6, now I can go do this. And, as we talked about, there's so much motivation out there. You can find it in so many different facets and on so many different channels and platforms that it's out there. It's, if you want to be motivated, or as you said, you just want to make your nut and you just kind of want to settle and meddle where you're at.
I ask salesmen all the time when I have sales meetings, what did the top salesperson in this dealership make last month? And I'll hear numbers anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. The top salesman in the dealership made $20,000, $10,000, $15,000. What did the least paid salesperson make last month? $2,500. Now, is that a professional salesperson who's been in the business a while? Yeah, he's been in business 3 years. Okay, how come one salesman made $2,500 and another salesperson made $15,000?
Right.
Did the $2,500 a month salesman just catch the unlucky ups, and the other guy caught the lucky ups? I mean, they both worked the same number of hours.
Right.
They had access to the same customers, the same community, the same phone calls. But one salesman made $25,000 and one of them made $2,500. Why wasn't that you? Why are you not the $15,000 guy? You had every opportunity the $15,000 guy or woman had. Why didn't you do it? And that's one of my best sales meetings. You'd be amazed how salespeople react to that.
Oh, I bet they come out and the ones making the $2,500, $3,500 were out there, hitting it hard, because that's what I always loved about sales is everybody starts over at the beginning of the month. Everybody has the same opportunities. Like you said, you can say, okay, Johnny has a bigger book of business and Sally's been here 12 years, and you can rest on those excuses, or you can you've got the same inventory. You've got the same new car programs. Like you said, you have the same customer base, you have the same lenders, you have the same service department, the same body shop, you have all the same opportunities. And I think the problem is, I just read a stat, and we know this being in sales and being in training, is 80% of a salesperson's day isn't used as far as work.
No.
It's watching a cat video on YouTube. It's calling their girlfriend or their boyfriend. It's spending an hour and a half figuring out where they're going to go for lunch. It's talking fantasy football. It's, anything but work related. And if you look at those top sales producers, like your Ali Rita or your Chad Lins or so many of these other guys, they're using 110% of their whole day.
Oh, absolutely. I was doing a meeting at Westway Ford in the 90s. Westway Ford was selling 1,000 units a month. And when I started working with them, they were selling 400.
Wow.
And I had 100 salespeople in the sales meeting from their new and used operation. 100 salespeople and managers. And 2 guys walked in late with their breakfast biscuits. And I was a pretty big guy. I was a lot younger then. I wouldn't do this today. But I grabbed their McDonald's bags and I said, I know you didn't disrespect me and the owner by bringing your breakfast here. So whatever this is, I'm going to throw it in the garbage over here. In front of 100 people, I threw their breakfast in the garbage. I see people that come to work and they got to send out for their breakfast and they got to work the crossword and they got to do all this bogus thing, but they spent their whole day getting ready to get ready.
Right.
Hit the ground running, man. I was there at 7 o'clock. I'm working the service drive before the showrooms open. And I set records in every dealership I worked for. Not because I'm smarter than everybody else. I just did things they wouldn't do.
No, and that's and you brought that up earlier, and I think that's actually absolutely the key to success is doing the things that others won't do. I switched dealerships after 5 years. I worked at 2 Ford stores, and I switched to Varsity Ford, which is one of the largest Ford stores in the nation. And I got my way up the ranks really quick. I could have came up with every excuse of how I couldn't do it, but I just utilized every opportunity that was in front of me. I learned at that store that leasing was definitely the way to fast track your career and your repeat and referral business. And so, I became from a store where we did probably 40, 50% leasing, and it was something that we all tried to stray away from, to a store that was 75% leasing, to where we actually got paid better on it, and saw what that did to my career. But, like you said, I utilized my whole day. And that's really when I became successful, is I utilized my whole day. I stayed away from fantasy football leagues. I told my wife not to call me at work unless the house was on fire. I went into work to focus on doing what it took to get customers in the showroom to sell them vehicles.
Well, Noel, I'm personally a prospecting juggernaut. I don't know. Did you get a chance to watch those videos I sent you?
I did get a chance to watch a couple of them, yes.
Did you watch the one where the guy was talking about when I sold a car in a median?
Yes.
In the rain?
Right. The guy from Ford.
I can walk out of any dealership in the country. If it's not a Sunday, if it's good weather and not a holiday, and I'll sell a car and deliver a car to a stranger before 5 o'clock. Any city in the country. And every salesperson can do that. But nobody does it anymore. Prospecting. You're swimming in a sea of ups. Where are ups? Try the expressway at 5 o'clock. They're bumper to bumper.
Right. Right. Wherever.
Tell me what do you do detailed? What do you do in the dealerships?
Yes. So what I like to do when I go into a dealership and I'm doing training is, first off, I like to run the meeting. So, run the morning meeting or be a part of the morning meeting to let them know who I am, what I'm doing there, and really what the objectives are that we're going to accomplish. From there, I would pick a subject matter that the dealer wanted to work on with their staff, that they thought that they were really faulty on. A lot of times it's prospecting, it's follow-up. You hear the same things. It's, prospecting, follow-up, those different things. So we do like a 2-hour workshop with some role playing and going over different processes, different systems, what they're currently doing, why that isn't working, what they can do to find a system that works. So I would do that with 2 different classes. From there, what I like to do is, depending on the size of the dealership, I like to spend about a half hour with each salesperson to go over individually exactly what we covered. Because, when you're in a classroom style, even if it's 6 or 8 people, usually a couple people get left out, right? There's the people that ask questions, and then there's the people that are just somewhat shy by nature, and they get left out. So I like to spend a half hour with each of those individuals, show them the processes, show them the phone scripts that we talked about, show them how to make the calls, show them how to leave a proper voicemail, show them how to follow up with their CRM, just really show them the basics that, you know, the basics are the basics for success. They really are. And when you follow the basics, you don't have to have the most extravagant process. If you've listened to Ali Rita's process, he doesn't have an extravagant process. He's like, I don't have a secret handshake. You know, I don't have magic dust. I just do what works the same way every time and expect similar results. So what I like to do is just really go over the good habits, show them how to do it, and then have follow up with management and really get management's perspective on each salesperson, management's perspective on what they think needs to be changed, what they'd rather their salespeople doing, and then really kind of putting my synopsis together for the GM and for the dealer of where I really see growth opportunities and what changes need to be addressed. So you don't get that clash, and you are getting a buy-in that's oversighted and overseen by the GM or the dealer, so that it makes sure that it gets implemented. Because the whole thing is well, that's Sarah's job. She's the GSM. That's her job. I just expect her to get it done. And, you know, and then having it fall there, that knowing that, hey, you've got to work with these people on this, because the biggest problem right now is retention. And it has been for years in this business, but I see it more than ever right now. And the cost of new hires is ridiculous. Why not cultivate what you have there with you? You know, when somebody goes and gets a job for the post office or the government, it doesn't mean that they're the most qualified employee, but they find a way to make them work. And at least spending more time into trying to make your sales staff work out after you're sure that they're qualified, that they're trained, that they're catching on, that they want to do this, rather than giving them the 90 days, you're out, let's hire a new batch.
What do you think the number one reason for dealership turnover is?
You know, I think it's...
I know the answer, I think.
Yeah, you know, I think... you know, training would be one thing, but most importantly, I think it's the salespeople actually knowing their role and their task and how to succeed.
I'm going to disagree with that. The number one reason people leave dealerships is spouse pressure. Over the hours, when I consult a dealership, I'm management. You know, I'm working on a different level. I train the salespeople, but I'm working on management, changing their whole culture and process.
Right.
First thing we do is we shorten their hours and hire more of them. You know, we got salespeople. Matter of fact, they have a complete weekend a month off from Friday at noon till Monday at noon.
Wow, that's impressive.
And that weekend off is carved in concrete. The manager can't change it. You're short on people, that's your fault. Live with it. You gave that saleswoman, that salesperson that day off, Friday at noon, half a day travel, Monday at noon, half a day travel, and the whole weekend. And retention went through the roof when we shortened their hours. We ran 3 teams in the big dealerships, and 100% of the time, one team was off. So we had 2 teams working 100% of the time. One team was off. That's how we shortened their schedules. And the retention of salespeople. We had a lot more people. Nobody thought you flooded the floor because there were only 2 teams on the whole at any one time.
Right.
So nobody had the impression the floor was flooded.
Right.
And of course, appointments are the number one thing we have to train salespeople today.
Yes.
Tell me about appointments.
Yes, you know, I see it now, especially when I go in training and I see people trying to put a car deal together over a text message or a Facebook Messenger. And yeah, they're just sitting here going back and forth, and they're sending all this information. And you know what the customer's doing now is they're just taking that information, they're just forwarding that text to your competitor, trying to get the best price. So I think what we're forgetting is, you know, really, to set the appointment starts with all those things that are nice: email, text, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, all your different social media platforms. We want to transfer those into a phone call where we actually have a verbal call, because when you talk with somebody, they're more likely to stick with their appointment than just message you and be like, oh, you know what, I've got other stuff I've got to do. I just won't make it, especially at car dealerships, right? Our appointment rate isn't like doctor's office or dentist office. It's low. So then get them on the phone, really answer a couple of their questions, because still you're just another website. You're just another face online. Really answer a couple of their questions, show them some value, and then from there, set the appointment for them to come in. It's so hard to sell a product that people haven't touched, they haven't smelled, they haven't driven. Yeah. You haven't shown them the benefits, and here you are trying to sell them a $550 a month payment on a picture that they have online on your website with a 360 view, rather than getting them in there and getting that whole, the sales buying process, especially for vehicles, is always going to be driven on emotion.
So they have to drive.
So you've got to get them to drive. Yes.
They've got to drive.
Get them in there, get them to drive the vehicle, show them, find out what they liked best about their previous vehicle, find out what they wish their new vehicle had, find the right vehicle, touch points on those options, on those features that are important to them, that would bring value to them. And that's how you have a high percentage of appointment shows and you have car sales, rather than trying to sell that $55,000 Explorer over a text message and
showroom.
Correct.
I go to the website and I can't find their phone number. And some moron told me one time, well, Mr. Ziegler, we like to get the customer to on an email conversation or a text conversation so we can get their phone call and call them and convert them to a phone call. And I said, well, why don't we just start with the phone call?
Right.
No, quit it. It's absolutely absurd.
You go to their contact us page and there's only, fill out your name and email and somebody will contact you. And it's like, no, I just want to call.
And so I type, yes, we will call you back, Mr. Meoff.
Right. It does make for a good laugh.
Yeah. How many cartoon characters are calling in dealerships?
Oh, they've got to do more shows about car dealerships. That's definitely a comical place. It's definitely. I was offered a reality show on cable. I mean, I was offered some big bucks to do a reality show about 6 years ago. And I mean, the guy that was producing the show, did you ever see the movie Good Burger? Yes.
Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Remember that?
Yes.
It was the same guy that made that movie.
Okay.
And he was the producer, and he wanted me to do a reality show about TV, about the car business. And I was working at the time, this has been more than 5 years ago, because I was working with Tobin Dodge in Las Vegas.
Yes.
The chopper. We got that dealership up to 800 units a month on a 3-acre lot. It was amazing. The Blue Genie and
chopper and the King of Cars and
the King of Cars. And I was like behind the scenes. Rich Ackman was the general manager, and and my processes were going nuts. And they were a little edgy. Those guys were little edgy, but that wasn't anything I taught them. It was
right.
But the stuff they got from me, we got up to 800 units a month. I mean, we had cars crammed in there that we had to get little skinny guys to crawl in the hatch to drive the cars out. They couldn't open the doors.
Crammed in there.
And it was amazing. And the way we sold cars, just people don't get it. There's not a dealership in the world that's not leaving $100,000 a month on the table.
Oh, I agree with you completely.
Right now, we are in a slowdown. Where the business is slowing down.
Right.
And if you're going to do business today, you're going to have to take that business away from a competitor that has that business. And you got to come in under the radar screen. You got to conquest those deals. You can't lose a deal. How much intensity are you teaching in your seminars?
I try and teach intense enough to get the message across, but to keep them engaged. And so you're absolutely right that, I teach, obviously, I loved gross when I sold, right? Every salesperson should love gross. But I looked at every deal as a customer. And so I'm not saying give away your unique used vehicle, but if you've got a 500 Ford Escapes and they want just a basic one, do whatever it takes to make that deal, because it's not always that deal initially that's the car deal. It's all the deals that you get off of that. But it's also, like you just kind of stated, it's one less for your competitor, because they're going to buy a vehicle that day. So it's either +1 for you or +1 for your competitor. So, I do find a point to call it quits, because obviously there's always going to be customers that just have ridiculous expectations and somebody spoiled them too much in the past, or they just don't understand the process. But we should try and get every deal that we can. And I definitely teach that there's nothing more important, just like the process to get the appointment. There's nothing more important than a customer on your lot in front of you. It's a complete opportunity. And
there's nothing more important than a deal in progress.
Exactly.
When a car is being sold, everything else stops and gets out of the way of the sale.
Yes.
I see managers that are involved in the deal or trade while a sale's going down.
Right.
And one of the biggest problems we have right now is getting the customer from the sales department to the F&I department.
Correct.
I mean, and ordinarily that a lot of times that's the salesman's fault. They're not putting a prepared deal in there.
Correct.
I was 4 years ago, I was working with Tammy LeBlue in Baton Rouge and Shreveport, Louisiana. The or Nissan.
Right.
I desked a deal that was $7,000 on a program Altima. We're holding $7,000 on a program Altima. And 30 minutes later, I walk by the office and the customer and her father are still sitting in the office 30 minutes after I penciled the deal. And I heard the father say, we're moving too fast. We might need to go home and talk about this. And where's my salesman? My salesman is in slow motion, stupid mode. I got to get some numbers off the car. I have to go get all the things that should have been done weren't done.
Right.
And salespeople have got to realize the importance of getting everything in the CRM. When that manager pencils the deal, and I'm a manager, I want that deal in the F&I office within 15 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. Nothing kills a deal like time.
Right in the deal, right there. I mean, when I pencil the deal, the shot clock is running. You're right there. The shot clock is running, and the F&I office is a basket.
Right.
No,
you've got to keep that process going, because it's, especially now, everybody's got a computer right in their hands. So if you're making them wait too long, and then they start to get the second guesses, like they always do, right? They start to second guess their decision. Now they're right on there on their phone, reaching out to other dealerships, they're
quotes. Sitting there showroom shopping you.
Yes, right.
And the salesman comes back finally to take them in the F&I office, and the consumer says, I just found a deal on TrueCar.
Yeah.
It's right across town. And all of a sudden your whole deal's unwound.
Right. You got to start back over and start the whole thing over. So no, there definitely needs to be, and that takes buy-in from all departments. Your sales manager should be seeing the salesperson, make sure that they've got everything correct in there. The sales manager, needs to make sure that it gets into F&I. So the F&I director or finance manager gets that to keep the process moving forward, because if you give them too much time to think, customers are going to come up with them. We all do the same thing. If you end up waiting too long for something, we all second guess ourselves. Should I be doing this? Do I need it? Am I going to use it? Am I getting the right one?
Customers have something I call buyer's anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
The closer they get to the deal, the more they start backing out.
Correct.
Have you ever had a consumer that was mean to you, rude to you, mistreated you, verbally abused you a little bit? You ever have a customer like that?
Oh, yeah, we all have.
And but when they made the decision and signed the purchase order, they got nice.
Right.
It was never about you.
Right.
It was always about the decision they knew they had to make and didn't want to make.
Right.
So you have to be a master at getting them beyond the decision to the
Correct.
fun part of ownership. I never tell a customer they're buying a car. I talk about ownership. When you own the car, when you own it.
Right.
I never talk about buying it. Buying sucks. Owning's fun.
Right.
No,
that's very true, and that's a great way to put that is ownership, because buying is bad. I usually use purchasing, but that's just a better form of buying. But it is ownership, and that's why it is so important to keep that process going. And you'll see your growth, you'll see your closing percentage go up. But there's nothing worse than spending all day putting a deal together, jumping through every hoop, and then at the last minute it starts to unwind because the process took too long, because they had to wait 2 hours to go into F&I, because the salesperson didn't have the right information in there. Then they start their showroom shopping on their phone.
And they were too long away from the customer at the desk.
Right.
Anytime you are away from the customer, that deal is going backwards.
Yes.
And that's why I tell someone, you put a customer in a car and let them drive and you didn't go with them.
Right.
Would you have a brain cramp? When they're driving by themselves, they're talking themselves out of the deal.
Right.
You have to be there so they don't talk about you behind your back. You need to be in their presence, if nothing else. And salespeople don't. A sale has a rhythm. It has a heartbeat. It has a pulse.
Absolutely.
You know when you are in the rhythm of the deal. You know when you are out of the rhythm of the deal. And managers need to keep the rhythm of the deal flowing. That's their job.
Correct.
As a manager, I touch every customer often and early. I never meet the customer for the first time in combat.
No, that's very true, because you're coming in as the enemy, to where if there's somewhat of a relationship built, you shook hands, they know your name, you know their name. You had a two or three question conversation. Then now you're coming in and you're negotiating with them. You're not the bad guy coming in to steal.
Exactly. When I was a finance manager, most of the records I set were as an F&I manager. I would always come out of the office and meet the people on the floor before they came in my office. And, I would always, I would play with their children. I wouldn't even tell them I was a finance manager. I'd start a conversation with them. Are my people, one of my favorite sayings is, are my people treating you okay? You having a good experience? So if they're my people, I must be the manager, but I didn't walk up there, hi, I'm the big shot,
Right.
Hey, we got to do something real important right now.
Yes.
How can they get in touch with you?
All right. So if they want to get in touch with me, they can first off email me at my name, Noel, at nwnaSalesTraining.com. I'll put that in here on the thread also. They can also call me directly on my cell phone, is the best. That is 734.
Okay, you got ahead of me a second. Hang on.
Nope, that's good.
Okay, 734
678 4502.
Okay, I just put it in the sidebar.
Perfect. I see that.
Yeah. And I got your
email.
Your email coming up on the hang on, let me correct that. I misspelled something. Okay. There it is on the screen.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Oh, after the TRAI.
Oh, I see.
ING.
Yeah.
Missing an N and I. NI. No, but hey, it was a pleasure to be on. It looks like we had a good audience, and it's always great training. Got it. Yep. It's always great, talking with you and being a part of your friendship and network, and I know you have a vast network, and I talk to people about trainers a lot when I go out there on the road, and your name always comes up with high regards and high remarks, and everybody knows who you are. And once again, it was a real pleasure talking with you, or meeting you at the industry summit and getting the opportunity to spend a couple hours with you. And we didn't get to spend as much time with Debbie, but I think she was having fun.
I'll tell you, honest to goodness, I hope people see that your phone number's there. I've got your email address. I know there's some people out there want to hire you.
Well, thank you.
And you know, I highly suggest. I've researched this guy a little bit. You know, I've researched him some, and I'm gonna tell you right now, his results are really spectacular. You need to pick up the phone, call Noel Walsh, get on Noel at nwnaSalesTraining.com. And give him an email, give him a phone call, hire this man. I mean, because we're entering a really competitive time in the business. You know, there's people watching this broadcast that sell Hondas and Toyotas, and you're really proud of yourself. But the truth of the matter is, for the last 10 years, I could put a monkey with a note in his mouth in the middle of the lot and do 20 units. You know, now you got to really use your skills. You've got to really turn it on. You've got to close the deals. You've got to prospect, and you've got to learn how to do that. You've got to have somebody that can teach a unified culture in your dealership. Such a man is Noel Walsh. I mean, give the man a call. Noel, it's been a pleasure having you on the broadcast.
Nothing but a complete honor and a privilege and a pleasure to be your guest today. And thank you for all the kind things that you just said. The recommendation it's unbelievable. One of my favorites of all time.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm hoping people share this broadcast all over Facebook. Dustin Morris just shared it. Thank you, Dustin. We got people sharing this broadcast all over Facebook. Put it on your own page. Put it on a page that you influence. Hey, Anthony San Angelo's on.
I saw that.
You know Sandy McNichol?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Sandy's on.
Hello, Sandy. Glad to have you. She shared one of the posts I did, or your post earlier today also.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Cheryl Lynn's on.
Yes, Cheryl, I saw that. Thank you, Cheryl.
Hey, Chris Martinez is on. I didn't even know he was here.
I didn't see him either.
Yeah, Chris, one of my favorite people. Chris Bennett's here.
Hey, Bennett's there.
Oh, Bennett's here. You know, what can I say? Becky Chernick says Jim Ziegler desk deals better than anybody in the universe. Thank you, Becky. I might not have quoted her exactly. Becky traveled with me while we worked together a while back, and we traveled. And we worked in the dealership. She worked the F&I department. I'd work the management and sales department. So, yeah, Becky Chernick, Rebecca. Becky's now Rebecca. I mean, look at all this culture here. You know.
Right.
Okay, I can learn to say Rebecca, but you're always going to be Becky. Johnny Lee. Kevin O'Brien. Kevin O'Brien used to be my Pat Ryan rep years ago when I was doing F&I.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's a guy that can tell you some Ziegler war stories.
Oh, I bet there's some good ones up there.
Well, listen, Guy, we've had a great broadcast. I hate to get off, but we've been on for an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's been a terrific broadcast, and it's always great spending time with you and being next to being in the presence of one of the best. I'm truly honored that you had me as a guest today, and I think you asked some great questions, and there's definitely a lot of knowledge in this broadcast for anybody out there in sales, F&I, management, GM, really any position. But I think to boil it all down is sales is still a people game, and we can't lose focus of that.
Like I say, I've been doing it 42 years, and I'm proud to know you.
I'm honored by that, and I've truly appreciated our friendship since I got to meet you in person. What seems like a long time ago, but it was 2.5 weeks or so.
2 weeks. Well, Listen, guy, I'm going to sign it off. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.